Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters. I'm your host Mitch, glad to have you here. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about Commander on a budget. Today we're going to take a withdrawal from the Knowledge Bank. On episodes like these, I take you through a specific aspect of the Commander format. This show and episodes like this one are possible because of viewers like you. So if you're looking for some easy ways to help support the show, make sure you like this episode and share it with friends. And make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Thank you to everyone who's already purchased our merchandise, it really does help support the channel. Another easy way to support this channel is by using our TCG Player affiliate links. So make sure that you're looking for those links in the description whenever you're buying a deck or just individual cards. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Today's episode is going to be about some Commander deck archetypes. A deck archetype is a recurring kind of deck or strategy that has many possible variations. An archetype might also be referred to as a theme in some places too. There are far too many archetypes for me to tackle in one episode, so we're just going to go through a few today. I'm going to give you a broad definition of the archetype, some commanders that may be built within that archetype, and some cards that are typically seen in that archetype as well. Keep in mind that these are all my opinions about these archetypes and that opinions differ from person to person. But now that we're on the same page, let's get into it. So today we're going to start off with a combo archetype. At its base level, a combo deck is pretty much a deck that works to create an infinite loop to win. With all the cards in Magic's history, there are plenty that interact in broken ways. A combo can be as simple as 2 cards or can be a lot more involved than that. Depending on the combo that you use, you're going to have different ways that you're going to win. Some combos can give you infinite tokens, other combos give you infinite mana, and some do infinite damage. There are even ones that just mill out your library or your opponent's library too. Some decks are completely built around one combo, and others have multiple combos in there. In my opinion, for a deck to be a combo deck, it really has to be centered around one or more combos. The goal of the deck will be to combo off to win. There are plenty of decks out there that might just happen to have a few combo pieces in them, but their purpose isn't just to combo off. For example, there are plenty of life gain decks out there that have both Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond in them. Both of these cards work really well in a life gain strategy. But if both of these cards are on the battlefield at the same time, they combo with each other. If an opponent loses life or you gain life, you drain everyone out infinitely. This is a combo, but a deck that's in the life gain archetype won't be built around specifically this. Now, if that deck's running a ton of tutors and is trying to get these two specific pieces out quickly, that's a different story. For some decks, there's a very fine line on what is a combo deck and what isn't. With others, it can be a bit more obvious. So let's go through some commanders that you might see in a combo strategy. First up, there's a very powerful one with the Gitrog monster. Essentially, it looks to mill itself, generate infinite mana, and win from there. If you want to see how that deck works, go ahead and check out my recent deck tech on it. Now, you don't have to build a Gitrog monster around a combo, but it's probably the most powerful way to build it. The same is probably true for Gave and Atlapalani. A Gave deck can essentially create and sacrifice an infinite number of creature tokens. And an Atlapalani deck can sacrifice egg after egg after egg in an infinite loop. Again, you can build a deck however you want. If you want to build one of these commanders without a combo, you can do that. Pretty much any commander can be built into a combo deck. You just need to use some combo pieces within its colors. But when the commander's part of the combo, it can actually be more effective. There are plenty of different cards that you're going to see in combo decks, but let's go through a few of them now. A card like Protean Hall can fit into a ton of combo decks. When it dies, you can search your library for any number of creature cards with total converted mana cost of 6 or less and put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. There are plenty of different creature card combinations that you can get from there to win. Another popular combo piece that you might see is Doomsday. It says search your library and graveyard for 5 cards and exile the rest, put the chosen cards on top of your library in any order, you lose half your life rounded up. So essentially with this, you can set the perfect combination of cards on top of your library to win. This was actually used as one of my win conditions in my Golos deck. And outside of Doomsday, you're probably going to see a ton of tutors in these combo decks as well. Food Chain is another popular one that can help you generate infinite mana in certain ways. Again, there are far too many combos in Magic for me to ever tackle in an episode. The Spike Feeders have a fantastic Better Know a Combo series where they go through how certain combos work. So that might be a good place to start if you're interested in those combos. Combo decks really can be found in any color. For some decks, the commander determines the combo. In other decks, the combo determines the commander. Now, there's plenty of debate about how people feel in general about combos in Commander, but that's definitely a topic for another day. For now, let's move on to our second archetype of the day and talk about what a politics deck is. Essentially, a politics deck is a deck that is working to influence and control decisions. Commander is a very unique format in Magic because there is a multiplayer aspect to it. If you're playing 1v1, you're not going to be able to make deals with your opponent. They have no incentive and no reason to help you out. But in a game that involves 4 players, plenty of deals can be made. By making a deal with another player, it might benefit the both of you and hurt the other 2 players. A politics deck is looking to wheel in deals so that things can be favorable for them. At a certain point, you're going to be incentivizing other players to do your dirty work for you. With many of these types of decks, you're going to work to not appear to be a threat. And because of that, you can work to convince others to take out the most threatening player. You may not be able to kill them on your own, but you might have some supporting cards that can help your opponents take each other out. But let's look at some commanders that can be very effective in a politics deck. First up, there's Queen Marchesa, which introduces the Monarch mechanic to the game. You can use that mechanic in a wide variety of ways. You can get some card advantage yourself, or you can make your opponents even bigger targets. Tasker is another one that can be very effective too. It has the ability to pay 2 Simic, and you can put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a non-land card of an opponent's choice from your graveyard to your hand. So a Tasker deck that's built around politics is going to use this ability to make some deals. You may have a card in your graveyard that can help out another opponent. If they need the board wiped and you've got a board wipe in your graveyard, then give it back to you. Of course, you're probably not going to be doing this for free, and you need something in return. And perhaps my favorite political commander is Feldegrif. Essentially, it has 3 different abilities that can each benefit opponents. You can give them hippos, you can gain them life, or you can help them draw a card. So with this deck, you're going to give one of your opponents a ton of hippos. You're then going to help them use their army of hippos to kill all of your other opponents, and then you're going to turn on them in the end. Again, a politics deck is looking to try to make a friend and not appear to be a threat. The deals that you make might seem like a great idea in the short term, but those same deals that you make are going to come back to haunt your opponent in the long term. First and foremost, you're going to be working to protect yourself with cards like Ghostly Prison. In order to make deals, you've got to stay alive. A card like Zindersplint's Judgment can be a great political card as well. It says, for each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend creates a token that's a copy of a creature they control, and each foe returns a creature they control to its owner's hand. So with this card, you can make some deals to benefit some players and to set some others back. And a newer card that can be really good in a politics deck is Scheming Symmetry. It says, choose 2 target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. You can make a deal with another player to get a specific card to help you both out. And the card that you get might not help that player out so much. With a politics deck, you're looking to wheel and deal and always make choices that are best for you. But again, while doing this, you want to make others think that you're not a threat. Now, politics decks can be found in every single color in Magic, but for the most part, you're probably going to see white, blue, or black in them. These colors have some good ways to protect themselves, as well as to make some deals. But now let's go over our third archetype for today with the Tokens archetype. Generally, a tokens deck is pretty straightforward. It's a deck that works to fill the board with creature tokens. There are plenty of ways in Magic to create creature tokens and to make even more copies of those tokens. For the most part, with these decks, you're working to create a critical mass of tokens that can overwhelm your opponents. Now, you can go with a go-wide strategy with a ton of small tokens. You can also go for a quality over quantity approach, though. If you can make some copies of a really good creature token, then you can overwhelm your opponents that way. So there are definitely different ways to go about this. So let's go through some commanders that can help illustrate some of those variations. A very popular tokens commander is Risk the Redeemed. Not only can it create tokens, but it can also double up the amount of tokens that you have. Another Selesnya commander that goes about in a slightly different way is Trostani. She has, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. And then you can pay 1 green, white, and tap her to populate. So Trostani might lean a bit more in the direction of creating bigger tokens. With bigger tokens, you can gain more life and create more copies of it by populating. But a tokens commander that goes about winning in a different way is Purphoros. It says, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Purphoros deals 2 damage to each opponent. So if you create a ton of tokens, Purphoros can just ping down all of your opponents. And if you need to attack with them, he can pump them too. But now let's go through some types of cards that you might see in a tokens build. A card like Tendershoot Dryad can create you a ton of tokens on its own. And once you have the City's Blessing, those tokens get even bigger. And then there's Anointing Procession, which can do a ton of work in a tokens deck. It says if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many tokens instead. So as long as it's on the board, it's going to double up your token production. And then a card like Second Harvest can just double up every single token that you already have. Again, a token deck can definitely be taken in multiple directions. It tends to be a quantity versus quality approach, but there are plenty of cards that overlap for those variations. Now there are definitely exceptions, but for the most part, you're going to see token decks in white and green. These colors have plenty of ways to generate a lot of tokens. But now it's time for us to move on to our final archetype of the day. So what exactly is the Blink archetype? A Blink deck is going to be a deck that abuses enter the battlefield triggers. Some permanents have an effect when they enter the battlefield. Decks like these are looking to get that effect over and over again. The effects are going to differ, but essentially every single time that you blink that permanent and it comes back into play, you get that effect again. That's going to generate you more value and get you ahead of your opponents. At a certain point, you're going to be way too far ahead of your opponents and they're not going to be able to stop you. But let's go through some commanders that you might see for a Blink deck. Perhaps the most popular one is Brago King Eternal. It says, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile any number of target non-land permanents you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. So when you have all of your permanents in play that have ETBs, you can essentially just blink them all just by hitting once. You then get every single one of their ETBs again, and you generate a ton of value. Another one that does this on a smaller scale, but is still very effective, is Rune of the Hidden Realm. By paying 2 and tapping it, you can exile another target creature and return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So unlike Brago, you can use Rune to blink whenever you want, but you can only do 1 creature at a time. With this kind of a deck, you might focus on certain creatures that have very powerful ETBs. And another commander that can be used in a Blink deck is Emanatu the Fate Shifter. Its -1 says, exile another target permanent you control and return to the battlefield under your control. So this one can blink any type of a permanent, even lands. Now you can only do this once each turn, but there are ways to abuse that so you can do it more than once. But now let's move on to some types of cards that you're probably going to see in these Blink decks. First up, there's Cloud Blazer, which says, when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. So if you can keep blinking this, you can gain a ton of value with it throughout the game. Again, there are a ton of creatures and permanents that have a lot of great enter the battlefield effects. effects. Depending on which blink commander you choose, you're going to have access to different ones. But outside of your commander, you might be running other ways to blink too. A card like Eerie Interlude can be fantastic in these kinds of decks. It says, exile any number of target creatures you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So you can use this to abuse some more ATBs on top of saving your creatures. And finally, a card like Panharmonicon is fantastic in a blink deck. It says if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So essentially this can double up your ETBs. So at the core of blink decks, you're probably going to see two colors, which are white and blue. Both of these colors have plenty of ways to blink creatures so that you can really abuse some ETBs. And if you haven't seen it yet, check out my last episode that covers some other archetypes. And with that, our show is coming to a close, but I really want to hear from you. In the comments below, let me know what your favorite archetype is. And make sure that you're following us on social media for more updates and sneak peeks on future episodes. Links to our social media accounts can be found in the description. Also in the description below is a link to the Commander's Quarters Patreon page, and I just want to say a quick thank you to the patrons who have subscribed so far. There are many benefits to being a patron for the Commander's Quarters, including being able to vote on future commanders for deck techs. There's even a general level tier where you get your own personalized deck tech dedicated to you. I truly couldn't do this without all of your support, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. If you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about budget commander. So while you're at it, go ahead and check out some of our other types of episodes. And with that, I'm out of here. Thanks again and have a good one.